Imagine being crushed to death in a queue for bread, not by a natural disaster, not by warplanes, but by a humanitarian system that promised aid and delivered death. This is Gaza today, a place where the simple act of seeking food has become a calculated hazard. On July the 16th, at least 20 Palestinians were killed at a so-called aid distribution site in Khan Yunis. Some suffocated, some were trampled, some allegedly were gassed, and others reportedly were shot. They were gathered at a centre run by the Gaza Humanitarian Fund, a joint Israeli and American project to bypass UN agencies and, in theory, ensure food reaches civilians rather than Hamas. In practice, it's become a grotesque parody of humanitarian relief. Children crushed between fences, tear gas choking the hungry, armed contractors herding desperate people through metal cages. One young man, Mahmoud Fojo, told Reuters those who couldn't stand fell under the people and were crushed. Another eyewitness described boys dying at the gate. What is their fault? Dying for aid? This is not an isolated tragedy. It's the latest in a grim ledger of corruption and destruction. Since the GHF began operating in May, at least 875 Palestinians have been killed while attempting to access food and water. The GHF and its defenders blame Hamas. They speak of agitators, armed infiltrators, unrest deliberately fomented. But they offer no proof. And meanwhile, video evidence shows American contractors used tear gas, stun grenades, and even live ammunition near aid lines. Leaked footage appears to show contractors firing at crowds and celebrating afterwards. The GHF denies all wrongdoing. The Israeli Defense Forces, the IDF, admits some civilians were harmed, but calls these lessons learned. Rather than distribute aid into population centres, GHF makes Gazans walk through military zones along corridors flanked by earth molds and gun towers towards sparsely located hubs. And there aren't enough sites, so thousands converge on each location, creating inevitable crushes, desperate tension, and inevitable tragedy. The GHF is not trusted by the UN. The EU refuses to work with it. Major NGOs describe it as a setup, as unethical and dangerous, and yet it continues under American funding, Israeli protection, and with diplomatic indifference. This is a famine, yes, but a man-made famine. Engineered. As UNRWA's Commissioner General Philippe Lazzarini put it, more than 58,000 Palestinians have died since the war began. Over half are women and children. Malnutrition is rampant. 1 in 10 children screened since January is acutely malnourished. And while this humanitarian catastrophe unfolds, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is busy attending his own corruption trial, supported bizarrely by the American ambassador. Meanwhile, the EU dithers. Some states want sanctions, others want trade. Ireland and Spain call for action. Germany and others speak only of monitoring. Amnesty International calls this not just cowardice but complicity. To shoot children at water tanks, to crush civilians at food gates, to bomb tents sheltering the displaced, this is not defense, it is contempt. A nation cannot claim moral legitimacy while forcing civilians to walk into danger for rice. And the international community, especially the West, must ask itself, when did humanitarianism become a trap? Because today in Gaza, aid doesn't save, it lures the vulnerable to death. And so it's necessary to say very clearly the weaponization of hunger is not aid, it's a war crime itself. And every stampede, every crushed child, every life lost in search of food is a mark of shame on all those who allow this system to function in their name.